Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the channel. I'm Cheryl, and this is True Crime and Other Stuff. Thanks for being here. Today, I want to read an article written by Michelle Mark. The title is The Gilgo Beach Murders Might Have Been Solved Years Ago if Police and Prosecutors Hadn't Fumbled the Case. And then it goes on to say, when authorities launched a task force early last year to solve the decade-old Gilgo Beach serial killing case, investigators took just 6 weeks to resurface a vital clue that would eventually help pinpoint a suspect in the 4 of the 11 killings that had haunted Long Island South Shore. The witness who last saw victim Amber Costello in September 2010 described the suspect and his vehicle to police, a dark, first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche, driven by a tall, dark-haired, heavy-set man, according to the Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tinnery. That tip went uninvestigated over the years. There are piles of evidence Tinnery told reporters at a press conference earlier this month. What is credible, what's not, what seems likely, what's not. It's not as simple as it seems. But when a witness tip was rediscovered in 2022, investigators used the vehicle's description and cell phone location data to identify architect Rex Heuermann of Massapequa Park as a suspect. Authorities arrested Heuermann on July 13th and charged him with murder of these women. He has pled not guilty to all charges, the speed of which the investigation proceeded some 13 years after the bodies were found has raised speculation about whether the murders could have been solved long before now. Multiple law enforcement agencies famously bungled their investigation over the years, while a corruption scandal ensnared Suffolk County Police Department and District Attorney's Office. Several key figures involved in the Gilgo Beach investigation were ultimately convicted of crimes they committed while in office. The first Gilgo Beach victim, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, first disappeared in 2007. Her body and the bodies of 10 other people weren't discovered until December of 2010, when police officers' canine partner inadvertently stumbled upon human remains during the training exercise, according to court documents. The case quickly went cold from there. The Suffolk County Police Chief at the time, James Burke, reportedly refused to share information with the FBI and federal investigations until Burke was eventually indicted for attacking a criminal suspect who had stolen Burke's bag of sex toys and pornography. This case was bungled and polluted from the beginning, John Ray, an attorney for several families of the Gilgo Beach victims, told the New York Press. Burke was ultimately convicted of violating the civil rights of the man he assaulted and conspiring to obstruct justice. When the feds investigated him, he was sentenced to nearly 4 years of prison. Suffolk County's former district attorney, Thomas Spota was also given prison time after he helped cover Burke. Sporta was convicted of witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and being an accessory after the fact to Burke's civil rights violations. He is currently serving a 5-year prison sentence. So, the newfound focus on the investigation plus technology advancements helped crack the case. Okay, so after the old chief and the old prosecutor were arrested, the Suffolk County Police Department's new chief refocused the department on solving the Gilgo Beach murders, honing in on data that the FBI had compiled on the burner phones the killer had used. Okay, so then we'll go on to talk about that stuff later. But I just kind of wanted to talk about how the police department was corrupted and this case could have been solved a long time ago, probably. We don't know, but yeah, okay.
The Gilgo Beach, Long Island serial killer case. One day after they had a description of this man. They had a description of his very unique vehicle. Someone who had an interaction one day before one of the victims went missing. And an eyewitness who actually saw this guy and described him and his car. And it's not like, oh yeah, you know, average height. No, not anything but average. Like huge Frankenstein-sized guy. And a very unusual vehicle as well, a Chevy Avalanche. How many of those are there out in Long Island and Massapequa? Not a ton. And that was one of the pieces of evidence that they, after these years, when they got like people together, and that's how they end up putting the pieces together with information that they had like 13 years ago? What's going on here? Well, we're going to dive into the problems with this investigation and why it was delayed for all these years this hour with some people who know a lot about what was going on in terms of law enforcement, politics, everything out in Long Island. This case should have been solved a long, long time ago, in my opinion. So let's begin though with the latest in this case, in the investigation. And there's been a lot of focus on the house of the accused killer. And we're getting some images now of what's going on in the yard. Look at that. You see the yellow excavator scooping dirt in the backyard on Sunday. Still at the house today. You can see from some of this drone footage what is going on there. Like, it's an obvious place to look, right? The guy lived here for years and years and years. You're gonna get rid of evidence, maybe get rid of it. They're dismantling a deck area. They're scanning. Are they gonna find anything? What would you expect to find? How do you go through the earth to find stuff without destroying evidence as well? This is an investigation where, yeah, they have some evidence now, but you always want more because it's always going to be challenged, especially in a high-profile case like this. But this is where a lot of the focus is now. So let's start there and talk about what's happening at the house. Joining us tonight in New York City, senior reporter from the U.S. Sun, Luke Kenton, back with us. And in Jacksonville, Alabama, forensic death investigator, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, and the host of the very popular Body Bags podcast, Joseph Scott Morgan, with us. Great to see you both. So, Luke, what are you hearing about the search of the property out there in Massapequa?
Yeah, there's been a great deal of police presence at the home since Rex Heuermann's arrest on July 13th. Over the last few days, that search seems to have intensified somewhat. We've had cadaver dogs present in the yard of the home. They've deployed sonar devices to look down into the ground, and also, you've seen heavy machinery there digging up and excavating the earth around the property. I think particularly the existence of canines and sonar is an interesting development. That seems to me to signal that perhaps police are looking for human remains on the property, and perhaps there are additional victims that we're not yet privy to, buried somewhere on that yard. Additionally, they'll be looking for other items of evidence, perhaps murder weapons, buried trophies. One of Rex's neighbors came forward last week and said during his time living next to Rex, around the time of the murders, he'd hear digging in the backyard at strange hours of the night and strange times of the morning as well. So that certainly seems to be something police are following up on, and we know that they're working with the theory that perhaps Rex lured some of these victims to his home and murdered at least one of the women there.
So Joseph Scott Morgan, the last time we were looking at a huge excavation in a backyard, it was Chad Daybell out in Idaho. We know they found significant evidence there, tragic but significant evidence. What are your thoughts about what's going on in the yard and the property there?
Well, they certainly have things set up very similar, actually, to the way Idaho was set up. You see multiple sites that they're taking this evidence to. There's one shot that our producers showed just a second ago, this tinted area. It's a covered area, and yeah, there you go. That area that you would see them working in, just imagine each one of those buckets that comes up with earth in it is taken to that area, and it will be sifted through, like you see on an archaeological dig many times, sifted through looking for any kind of fragmented bone or any kind of items that might be in there. You can find jewelry, you can find all kinds of things. However, what's very striking about this, Vin, is the fact that this is a very blunt tool that they're using. I don't know what can be inferred by that, but it's covering a lot of ground at one time. They're taking out big scoops. It's not like a traditional archaeological dig where you have the area kind of gridded off into particular areas where you're working each individual grid. They're taking up big gobs of earth at that point in time. So it'll be very interesting to see how this kind of plays out. Another shot that you guys are showing right there, if we can hold that for a moment, you see those cellar doors, and that's very intriguing to me as well, because that's out of sight. We've got a lot of vegetation in the backyard, so you're not going to be able to appreciate what might be going on the other side of the hedgerow. However, now with drone technology, you can see all kinds of things.
Absolutely. Now, something else that a lot of people were talking about is what's going on inside the house. Did he have like this room, which was just his room where no one else was allowed? And then rumors that it may have been a soundproof room in the basement of the home. Here's Rodney Harrison, who's been pretty forthcoming throughout this part of the investigation with information. He's the Suffolk County Police Commissioner. Here's what he had to say about the rumors of the soundproof room.
Somehow some bad information got out. There's not a soundproof room. There is a vault. We've secured numerous amount of guns. Somehow, I believe that the soundproof room and the vault, that was misconstrued. There is a vault. There's no soundproof room.
All right, Luke, what do we know about what was found in that basement? We heard the commissioner there talk about a vault.
Yeah, the confusion between the soundproof room actually came from a neighbour late last week who said that they were told by a police officer on the scene that this soundproof room had been discovered. That information was slightly misconstrued. What it actually is a walk-in vault in the basement, which we did know a little bit about before. In that vault, Rex Heuermann was storing somewhere between 200 to 300 firearms, which is certainly a very excessive amount. Around 90 of those he had a permit for, but the rest seemed to be unaccounted for at this time. Beyond that, we don't actually know what else was found in the basement, but authorities did say that the search of the home, including that vault area, has been very fruitful so far. So I'm sure we'll find out more information about that in the coming days and weeks. But I also think, it's important to highlight that number of firearms. 200 to 300 is a huge amount. And I was speaking to some criminal profilers over the last few days who said, that number paints Rex Heuermann as maybe an obsessive individual, and certainly maybe even a paranoid one as well. We know in the days and weeks leading up to his arrest, he was researching this case. What some of the searches were. Why haven't the Long Island serial killer been found yet? Why weren't they able to trace his cause? And I suppose that begs the question, was he paranoid that the net was finally closing in on him?
Joseph Scott Morgan, what are your thoughts about searching that basement, the vault, all the guns, and how that could or potentially be connected to this investigation? And would you expect to find anything else hidden inside that home?
Well, certainly we know that in past cases where there have been serial perpetrators, one of the things that they enjoy doing is collecting trophies. And these can be anything from jewelry to items of clothing to actually anatomical elements that they will return to and kind of fantasize over. But I think a word of caution here, Vin, it's very, it should be, and this was pointed out, and I'm glad that Will brought this up. It was alleged to be a soundproof room. There's a big rush among the media to want to turn this guy into Gacy at this point in time. You can't throw around terms like soundproof room and have that out there. You're talking about acoustic paneling. You're talking about specific kinds of carpeting. All these kinds of things can be inferred by that simple comment. There's enough on these guys' plate to have to process at this point in time. And the fact that he's got this many weapons down there, and Lord knows what else, I think that what you should be keying in on is what was mentioned. They're saying that this was fruitful. And from an investigative standpoint, when I hear that, and to continue on with that analogy, I like to think about this as harvest time, where you're going to try to collect as many fruits as you possibly can of your labor down there in your searches. And the fact that they're saying it is fruitful is key, because they have elements that could potentially have tiebacks. Remember, one of these other comments that's floating around in the media is that it is believed that one individual may have been killed in that home. And again, I think that that's what we need to be focusing on, and not thinking about soundproof rooms and those sorts of things at this point in time.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Wow, they think somebody might have been killed there. Okay. Okay, I kind of wanted to watch some more of a different video to see how they caught Rex Heuermann.
The Long Island serial killer, the Gilgo Beach murderer, and now authorities say they've identified him by his true name and taken him into custody. We're unraveling the mystery that dates back more than 10 years. Law and Crime Daily, covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everybody to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Jesse Weber. A major update to a true crime mystery that has haunted the Long Island, New York area for more than a decade. Authorities say that they have arrested a man believed to be the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Law enforcement took Rex Heuermann into custody late Thursday, and his home was being searched on Friday. He's lived for decades across the bay from where multiple sets of human remains were found. He's now charged with first and second-degree murder in connection with the deaths of 3 women, and he's considered a prime suspect in a 4th. Suffolk County prosecutors are asking for Heuermann to be held without bail because of the nature of the crimes, as well as very unsettling internet searches that included child pornography. Heuermann is a married father of 2 and a licensed architect in Manhattan. Authorities say they first identified him as a suspect in March of last year, and the task force took over from there.
Our partners and my office, we used the grand jury to continue to investigate, and we executed over 300 subpoenas, search warrants pertaining to this individual to find out more information. One of the things that we did is we followed him because we wanted to get an abandonment sample of his DNA, which we were able to do. We also got DNA samples, abandonment samples from his family. This really supported our decision to keep our investigative focus secret, because we knew that one person would be watching, and we didn't want to give him any insight into what we were doing. And we also didn't want him to know just how close we were getting. So we maintain the grand jury secrecy, and we maintain the integrity of our investigation. In addition to those Gilgo searches, he was compulsively searching pictures of the victims, but not only pictures of the victims, pictures of their relatives, their sisters, their children. And he was trying to locate those individuals.
All right, we want to give you some background on this case, which has thus far remained unsolved. So an escort named Shannon Gilbert disappeared in 2010 while leaving a client's home. And as police searched for her, they found a body, then another, and then another. In all, 11 sets of human remains were found along a highway near Gilgo Beach in 2010 and 2011, including Gilbert's. Now, most of the victims were female sex workers, but an Asian man's body was also found, as well as that of a toddler. Detectives believe it's unlikely that all the bodies found near Gilgo Beach were connected to just one killer. You may have seen a documentary on this case called Lost Girls, released on Netflix in 2020. In 2022, Suffolk County's police commissioner created a task force that included the DA, the Sheriff's Office, New York State Police, and the FBI to renew the search for new clues and hopefully push the investigation forward. Criminal profilers at the time the bodies were discovered said killers like this do tend to fit a certain type.
Okay, on my next video, we're going to get into the victims and probably more about how Rex Heuermann is believed to be the suspect. All right, thanks for watching my videos and have a nice day.